In Haiti, a CARICOM mission began its work agenda as agreed at the meeting in Jamaica. In Portugal's President Diaz-Canel and Marcelo de Sousa recognized the good state of bilateral relations and the potential for strengthening cooperation between the two peoples. And in Indonesia, the Asean Summit China called for stronger cooperation and accelerate the process of regional integration. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Alene Prosabal from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Mexico's Attorney General's office confirmed the arrest of a former military officer linked to the forced disappearance of the 43 students from the Ayotzinapa school. Federal police officers arrested Francisco Narvaez Perez in Querétaro in the north-central part of the country. Narvaez is accused of the crime of forced disappearance and in relation to the students who disappeared in Iguala on September 26, 2014. The former soldier requested his retirement a year after the facts. With Narvaez, there are now 10 militaries detained, and the prosecution maintains that they knew the complicity between local authorities and organized crime organizations that brought harm to the students. And in Haiti, a mission set up by the Caribbean States Community, CARICOM, has already begun its work agenda as agreed at a meeting in Jamaica. The so-called CARICOM Eminent Group is a mission that follows up on the stakeholders' meetings, and it is made of the three former Prime Ministers, Kenny Anthony from St. Lucia, Perry Creasy from the Bahamas, and Bruce Golding from Jamaica. The group has already met with the government, with politicians, with representatives of the civil society, and they also expect to meet with groups from the private sector, from the informal sector, and the media. The mission was appointed by the CARICOM governments to support the good office of the community. The Actors Union of the U.S. Broadcast Federation, which represents Hollywood workers and actors, joined the screen-wide strikes against major studios and streaming services. The move comes after failed negotiations with the Alliance of Film and Television Producers on July the 12th, and the union chief negotiator Duncan Crabtree said the Guild's national board voted unanimously to launch a strike against the studios and streamers because of their unwillingness to reach a fair agreement to protect the rights of working actors and performers. The union said that some of the key issues being negotiated are for wages and the unregulated use of artificial intelligence in the industry. Michelle Vaccaro, a member of the Actors Union SAG-AFTRA, adds that the strike could go on for a long time and admits that the industry is willing to lose a ton of money so that they don't get jobs.
I think we've gotten to the point where there's just so much contempt by the studios and the streaming services that they are ready to lose a ton of money so that we don't get any. But I feel like SAG is partly responsible for this because over the last 20 years, I've seen them give away so much stuff. And to the point where I think the producers feel emboldened and empowered. And they're in a position now where, again, they feel like they don't need us anymore. They don't need writers. They don't need actors.
On Friday, the U.S. National Weather Service warned that residents in Central and Southern California over the weekend should prepare for the hottest weather of the year. As of Thursday, more than a third of U.S. citizens were under extreme heat warnings in the wake of a blistering heat wave hitting the nation. And according to the National Weather Service, spread to the West Coast, forcing residents to seek air conditioning or find other ways to stay cool in above 40 degrees. Heights could seek 48.8 degrees Celsius during the day and stay above 26.6 Celsius during the night. Forecasters says the long-duration heat wave is extremely dangerous, especially for older people, homeless, residents, and other vulnerable populations. On Friday, 11 noxious gases were coming out of a volcano in Iceland for a fourth consecutive day. The eruption started in an uninhabited valley near the Little Northern Mountain, south of the capital Reykjavik, on the Monday. The area known as broadly as Fall volcano erupted twice in the last 2 years without causing damage of the eruptions to flights. Despite being near Keflavik, Airport Island's international air traffic hub. Authorities urge people not to tread to the volcano, saying there may be high levels of volcanic gases accumulating close to the eruption. Iceland, which sits above a volcanic hotspot in the North Atlantic, average an eruption every 4 to 5 years. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, new updates, and more. All the studies coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel kicked off on Friday his work agenda in Portugal as part of an official state visit aimed at furthering bilateral ties. Díaz-Canel held an official meeting with Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, in which both nations confirmed that they will deepen the political, cultural, economic, and collaborative relations in different areas of common interest. The Cuban president was also received earlier by the President of the Assembly of the Republic, Augusto Santos Silva, in a meeting which was also attended by leaders of political parties and members of the Parliamentary Group of Friendship with Cuba. Díaz-Canel expressed his confidence that this visit will contribute to the expansion of bilateral relations between the nations, which have been uninterrupted for 104 years.
This visit is also framed in the context of the European Union Select Summit to be held on July 17th and 18th in Brussels, in which Cuba will participate in a very active and constructive way within the relationship between the European Union and Latin America. The conversation I had with President Rebelo de Sousa have already shown us a spirit of great cooperation and understanding in what can be said to have been very fruitful talks.
On the occasion of the meeting between the presidents of Cuba and Portugal, the Portuguese dignitary Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa emphasized that the future of bilateral relation lies in strengthening friendship.
I do not forget the meeting with Commander Fidel Castro, one of the last ones he had before he passed away. But let's focus on the future, and for us that means strengthening friendship, strengthening cooperation, strengthening cultural cooperation, social cooperation, economic cooperation, political cooperation, and diplomacy, and above all, to strengthen the ties between the two peoples.
In this context, both presidents inaugurated on Friday in Lisbon a bust in tribute to Cuban hero José Martí. The work is a result of the collaboration between Cuban and Portuguese people, with the interest of promoting cultural ties and friendship between both peoples. The presence of the Cuban delegation in Portugal will continue until Sunday. Afterwards, Díaz-Canel, accompanied by Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez and First Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade Ana Teresita González, will participate in the European Union Community of Latin American and Caribbean State Summits in Brussels on July 17 and 18. France celebrates on July 14th its National Day to remember the storming of the Bastille with the traditional military parades on the Champs-Élysées and a concert followed by fireworks with the Eiffel Tower as a witness. President Emmanuel Macron and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, guests of honor, participated in the event. After 2 years of the recession due to COVID-19, the celebrations returned in all their splendor. More than 6,000 troops and 181 armored vehicles and 64 airplanes and 25 helicopters marched in the celebration. The military parade is framed in a context of international tension due to the conflict in Ukraine and domestic conflicts. In this sense, the government deployed 140,000 security forces to secure the celebrations during the weekend. Dmitry Medvedev, head of Russia's Security Council, chaired by Russian President Vladimir Putin, visited the Skopje range on Friday.
Coordination at this training ground has just begun. This is the second time over the last year. What is enough? What is missing? What are the talks? What could be improved? Finally, my goal is to report to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief on how combat and political training is going on for everyone who will participate in the special operation. This is the objective.
On Friday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Russian President Vladimir Putin has agreed to extend the Black Sea grain deal, which expires on Monday.
We are preparing to welcome Putin in Turkey in August, and we agree on the extension of the Black Sea grain corridor.
U.S. President Joe Biden emitted an executive order to mobilize at least 3,000 reservists to reinforce the eastern flank of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in Europe. Biden signed the resolution after returning from his European tour. Douglas Sims, Director of Operation of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, affirmed that it is part of the Atlantic Resolution, an operation launched in 2014. The Pentagon declared that this contingent will not be considered as additional troops, but will be available to provide support in the tasks that may be required. On Friday, Chinese authorities criticized the counterproductive security strategy adopted by the German government, adding it will only exacerbate division in the world. China accused German authorities of promoting economic protectionism following Germany's call to German companies to reduce their dependence on Chinese suppliers.
The Chinese side has taken note of the relevant document released by the German side. We believe that making use of competition and protectionism in the name of de-risking and reducing dependence to securitize and politicize normal cooperation will only produce the opposite of the intended result and create man-made risk. To draw the line based on values and ideologies to claim the so-called competition of systems, interests and values goes against the trend of the times and will only exacerbate divisions in the world.
We have a second show break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's more recent events. Final show break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Indonesia, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Jin said the countries of the region should strengthen cooperation and face challenges together. The statements came during the Foreign Ministers' meeting of Asean Plus 3. The Chinese diplomat called on the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Japan, and South Korea to accelerate the process of regional integration. In this sense, Wang reiterated the countries of the region must push economic recovery and also recalled that China has provided support for economic and technological cooperation under the Comprehensive Economic Partnership and helped Asian countries improve their capacities to implement the Free Trade Agreement. In this context, Chinese spokesman Wang Wenbin highlighted the positive cooperation China and Asia have maintained over the past 2 decades.
Over the past 20 years, China and Asean have actively acted on the purpose and principles in the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia, expanding mutually beneficial cooperation in all directions, and successfully worked out a correct path of permanent good neighborly friendship and common development and prosperity. The two sides have worked together to promote the building of a community with a shared future, the construction of the Belt and Road, the development of regional economic integration, and the consolidation of foundation for peace and stability.
Syrian ambassador to the United Nations Bassam Sabab said his government took the sovereign decision to grant precision to the UN to deliver humanitarian aid. The authorization is granted to all UN agencies and will extend it for 6 months. The decision was made public after the Security Council suspended the mechanism used for nearly 10 years by the UN and its partners to alleviate aid cross-border to areas outside the control of the Syrian government. Russia vetoed a continuation of the strategy, and the Syrian ambassador confirmed that he had told the UN Secretary General that they could use the Bab al-Hawa crossing on the border with Turkey. The International Criminal Court announced an investigation for war crimes in Sudan. The conflict that began in April has already claimed more than 3,000 lives. The ICC move comes after numerous reports of the warring sides brutally, and the discovery of mass graves and the bombing of residential areas. Authorities in Western Darfur believe it comes late, as they have reported extrajudicial executions, massacres, violations, and all kinds of sexual crimes for over a month. The UN Special Envoy to the country, Volker Perthes, called Generals Abdel Fattah Burhani and Mohamed Daglo, leaders of the warring groups, to account. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, presidential candidate Moise Katumbi described the murder of Cherubin Okendi, spokesperson for the opposition party Together for the Republic, as a political crime. On Thursday, Cherubin Okendi was found dead inside his car, with his body riddled with bullets, 5 months before the elections in the Central African country. The victim was invited to a work session at the Constitutional Court on that day, but on Wednesday night, he was declared missing by his colleagues. Moise Katumbi denounced that the crime was intended to silence his organization and announced an independent investigation to establish the truth. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For telesur English, I'm Madeleine Prosabal. Thank you for watching.